Now we're going to add a new activity to the app. And that activity will be for viewing the individual list items and modifying them. Probably have to split the video into two parts. The first half will be starting the activity and providing the name of the item from the list, and then displaying that in the second activity. And in the second video, we will edit that name and return it to the first activity. So let's go to the app and add a new activity. We'll call it a detail activity, and you can do that by going to the package inside of Java and right-clicking it and going to new Java class. You could also do activity and let it generate the activity file and add it to the manifest for us, but I think it's better to do that ourselves and learn how it's done. So Java class, detail activity, and make this extend activity. And now we can add this to the manifest. So we haven't talked about the manifest yet. If you look inside of the main folder, you'll see it's the third item in there. And the manifest is required for every single Android application, and it is basically a list of all of the components and little details about your app. So you'll see in our manifest right now we have the application, which has this is where you have your icon for the app theme. We'll get into these a little bit later. And you'll see inside of the application tag is an activity, and that activity is main activity. And you'll see in main activities, and you'll see inside of main activity we have an intent filter with an action. This is saying to start this activity as soon as the app is launched as the first activity. It's very important to have every activity your app is going to use in here. If you try to start an activity that's not defined in here, the app will crash. So let's add the detail activity we made, just like that. That's all we need to do. And now let's go back to the detail activity and let's override the onCreate method. So let's add a view, and right click layout, new layout resource file, and call this activity underscore detail. Keep the root element as a linear layout, and let's go to text. And like I mentioned earlier, it's just going to be an edit text and a button. So we'll use an edit text first. It will match parent for width and wrap content for height. It also needs an ID. Mine will be activity underscore detail underscore edit text. And let's add a button. Same thing for the parameters, layout parameters. It'll be match parent and wrap content. And it'll need an ID as well. And in addition to that, it needs text to display. So text, and we'll call it save. So if you switch back to the design tab, you'll see the button says save, and you have an edit text up there. If we look back at the text tab, we'll see a warning here, which is recommending that we don't hardcode the string. And you can use this to extract it, but let's fix this manually first. So we can fix this by going to values inside of the resource folder and opening up strings.xml. And this is where the string should be saved. So this makes it easier to support multiple languages and reuse string values. Every string should be referenced from this file, and you shouldn't hard code it anywhere, not in a Java file, not in any other XML file. So let's just let's type that out. Save underscore action. So the name in quotes is the ID that's going to be generated for it, and the name between the carets is the name that the person or the app is going to display. So now we can reference that with @string / save action. And if you look back at the design, you'll see it's still saved. Alright, so our view is done. We can add that to the detail activity by calling setContentView r.layout.activityDetail. And now let's just reference the edit text and button. Okay. So now we will make the main activity start the detail activity on an item press from the list view. So let's call list view dot set on item click listener. Remember, it also has just a set click listener. We don't want to use that. We want to use the on item click listener. And now we will start an activity. So the way you start an activity is by using an intent. So let's go over what is going on here. An intent is used to start other activities, communicate between activities, communicate between fragments, services. It's basically how you tell the system what you want to do. And in this intent, we're using the constructor that takes in a context and a class. And the context is the part of the app we are creating this intent from. Keep in mind, an activity is a form of context, and the class is what we want to go to. And a class can be an activity, it could be a service. So in this example, we've called an activity. And you need to type main activity.this. You can't just use this like we did in the array adapter, because we are actually inside of a on item click listener class when we are typing this from inside of this this function. And we want to use this that references the main activity. And this is how you do that. So now that we have the intent, we need to start it. So start. The activity has a start activity method that takes an intent. And that should be all that we need. So if we run this app now, let's add name and click name, and you'll see we've started that activity detail, or that detail activity. However, we haven't told it what value to display in the edit text field. So now let's work on adding that. And so we're going to need to reference the item that was clicked and get the string value for that. And just like we used the position value on item long click to remove an item from list items, we will use that same position value to get an item from list items. And now we need to add that item to the intent. And the intent, the way we'll do that is use a key that the detail activity and the main activity will need access to. So it needs to be a public constant. So the specific values you use here for either the variable name or the string value aren't important as long as they're unique. So now, as long as they're unique and used in both the main activity and detail activity. So now what we'll do is we will add the item value, put extra, to this intent. So the first parameter in the intent is the key, which is detail name. The second value is a string that we want the detail activity to see, and that is item in this case. Now let's go to detail activity, and really quickly we can get a reference to the intent that was passed using the getIntent method. Then we can get the string stored inside of it, the string that we provided inside of it, with the intent.getStringExtra method. And the string that we need to type in there is the one we created in main activity. Remember, these keys need to match. So this value needs to be the same value as the value we used here. And now we'll get the value of the item we passed, and we can tell the edit text to display it. Alright, so if we run this, we will add a name. You can click it. We get the value we passed into this activity and stored in the edit text. So that is good enough for part 1. In part 2, we'll change it so if we modify this in any way and press save, when we return to the main activity, the name inside of the list will update. If you have any questions, just write me a comment below.